Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today. Welcome to filmandtvreview.com. Catch the latest film, TV and streamed show reviews every week. The views and opinions expressed by the authors and those providing comments are theirs alone. They do not reflect the views, opinions or position of filmandtvreview.com or their respective parent companies or affiliates. Filmandtvreview.com makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and is for entertainment purposes only. Episodes may contain adult humor and language. For full terms and conditions, see filmandtvreview.com.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Film and TV Review. And we're looking at the releases on the cinema and also on the streaming services over the last month. And I'm joined by our regulars, Richard, James, Alfonso, and Noel also. Quite a few releases. We'll start off. Well, we'll go through a few titles like If, The Acolyte, Planet of the Apes, Furiosa, and we'll ask my guests just to pick the highlights from the recent Cannes Film Festival. So we'll start off with If. That's a cinematic release. I think has Ryan Reynolds in it. Does it? And it's kind of a fantasy, kids kind of like imaginary friend fantasy. But Richard and James, you saw this.
Yeah.
How was If? Was it fun for all the family? Adults and children?
Great, James.
So If, like you say, starring Ryan Reynolds, directed by John Krasinski, who's behind obviously A Quiet Place. And it's a young girl who is going through a lot of family trauma, and she encounters an If. Now, the film is I think it is called If, but If kind of stands for it's IF, and it stands for Imaginary Friends. And the whole concept of the film is there's this very big purple kind of CGI creation that you see on the poster, who is an imaginary friend of someone who is now an adult. And the whole concept is these imaginary friends, once the children grow up, they kind of forget about their imaginary friends. And this girl is trying to find them basically new children to be friends with. So it's a little bit convoluted that the imaginary friends aren't imaginary anymore. But I did really like this. I sort of went in with not very many expectations. And I did find myself going with it. I think it is a film that maybe the day I saw it, it was the film I needed to see. I was in the mood for a sort of feel-good film like this. And if I'd have seen it on another day, it's possible I would have taken against it. It's very, sort of really pulls on the heartstrings, but I think it works. It's nice seeing Ryan Reynolds in a family movie. Obviously, the thing he's most famous for is Deadpool. And I find when he does other things like The Hitman's Bodyguard, I'm kind of just watching him do Wade Wilson again.
Yeah.
But with the thing that it's not a Deadpool movie. So I liked that he was kind of working clean with his humor here. Pretty much, it's kind of a family film. One of the things that maybe against it, or I don't know, is I think it is a family film that really plays to an adult audience, not in terms of being crude or crass, but it's very much about maybe growing up and lost childhood. So I think maybe families that go to see this, the kids might really enjoy it and come out and go, "Why are mummy and daddy crying?" If it's got to them. But then maybe that is a good thing. Maybe if a film works, the kids are going to be there just for the special effects and the fuzzy monsters, and it sort of touches the parents on a sort of deeper level about growing up. So I really enjoyed it. I will say as well, there is a really good payoff in the last moment, and if you stay, I won't ruin what it is, but read the cast. There's not a post-credit sequence, but read the cast, and there was a joke in the cast that made me laugh for about 10 seconds. It's a very good joke at the end. But so I really enjoyed this. I'll probably give it about 4 stars, I think. I sort of come out of it really, really in love with it. In hindsight, it's not a perfect film. I think it works as an emotional kids film with a lot of jokes in it.
Richard, you agree?
Yeah, I agree on most things that actually James just said. It's a family movie, but I understand what he means. But actually, that maybe it's more for grown-ups than for kids. Not that actually kids will not find something, but it's true that there are layers of the movie or the script. Well, maybe layers is not the right words, but maybe that a kid would not understand. But yeah, if you are like in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, probably actually there are things actually that you be moved and that you be in tears. I was a couple of times because I thought actually it was very pretty, very very nice, very cute moments. About the cast, I noticed actually what he was talking about in the credits, so I will not spoil it. Talking about the cast, obviously, this movie is directed by John Krasinski. He has a small role in it, an important small role in it, obviously. And it's also, just to mention it, obviously, is the reunion of John Krasinski and Steve Carell in this movie, because Steve Carell is actually playing one of the main imaginary friends. Very famous Steve Carell for animation. I mean, he's also in Despicable. And Ryan Reynolds, I agree, but actually he's for once he's not being Ryan Reynolds. When I watch Deadpool or things like that, or the ones that you mentioned, I always feel like I'm just watching him. I can bet that he's almost like this in real life, or something like that, joking around, etc. And for once, in few scenes, he's trying to show some, well, drama is a strong word, but at least he's trying to do something new. I thought actually that the young actress is doing a very good job selling it, to be honest. If she makes the right calls, I think she might have a bright future. It's not a perfect movie, as you said, because there were many moments in the movie where I was thinking, okay, where this is going. But I really enjoyed it, and I think that when it's going to streaming, and it will eventually go, I will definitely recommend it and watch it with my nieces or things like that. And of all the movies I watch in movie theaters, that's not many I can say I can share it with my niece, etc. So that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kaylee Fleming is the actress. I forgot to mention her. She's fantastic.
No,
so
she's really good.
Although
She's
Ryan
really
Reynolds
good.
is obviously top billed, she kind of carries the movie. And I should say there is actually a post-credit sequence because there's a dedication to Louis Gossett Jr., who's one of the voices who passed away before the film come out. But the voice cast is really impressive. I think Emily Blunt is in there, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So it's a real also, and I didn't even realize actually watching the film until the cast come up as well. So that's another reason to read the cast list.
I'm a moron. Yeah, obviously, yes. Kaylee Fleming is actually well known in the world of Hollywood because she's actually one of in the main cast of the latest seasons of Walking Dead. Yeah. By the way. Yeah. She's actually in the main cast of Walking Dead in the last 5 or 6 seasons. So I was thinking she's actually familiar, but I just find out now. Yeah.
Okay. Just generally kind of good all round on that film actually. So both Okay, actually, we'll try and catch that. Right. Well, next we have a very recent release this week, and that's Disney Plus's Prime series, Star Wars or The Acolyte. This is, of course, another series in the Star Wars world. I think this is set quite a few years before the Phantom Menace, so we're going back to I think the Jedi in their prime. So a whole new cast, unknown faces, but I think a murder mystery, beginning of investigation. That's the premise of it. But a whole rich world of Jedi's and their shenanigans and politics, I guess. So is this the series to get Star Wars back on track now? I mean, it's been a bit of a bumpy road, but I mean, so I kind of like reserve my evening out and just kind of like get ready to watch this for the weekend. Noel, Richard, you saw this.
I will let Noel or Alfonso start, to be honest.
I actually enjoyed it. The trailers, I mean, didn't look that good to me in the trailers or the trailer, but actually, when I have seen the first two episodes, the premiere episodes, and I have enjoyed them. The action, the characters, the premise, which develops quite quickly in these two episodes. So I don't know really where the series is gonna go. Really, like things have happened, quite a lot of things have happened in these two episodes. So it may be a different thing that what the genre can be changed from here. Well, probably it's more or less. There are good set pieces. I like the action. It's not like amazingly big in scope. It's something in the middle, but well done. The showrunner Leslie Headland had done before Russian Doll, so she came more from like independent cinema and this kind of series that had critical acclaim, but not. I mean, she was a Star Wars fan, but it's nice also that she had the freedom. I think she pitched the series story to Lucasfilm, and they liked it, and they let her do the series, which, as you said, is before the Phantom Menace. So it doesn't have this kind of ties, like for example, Furiosa has, that you have to tie it with another film, and we will talk about it later with Furiosa, how that kind of makes it be very specific in what it has to happen. No, here you don't know if the characters are new. They are of course in the same universe, and some of the places like the let's say the Jedi base, when they were the place where they teach the young Padawans, it's instantly recognizable. But and the actors, I think, vary in quality. Probably I like the main actress, Amanda Steinberg, but I don't so much I don't know his name, but he's a protagonist of Squid Game. Maybe going into English language, he does well the emotion, but I don't know if he has full control of English to like really do very well his dialogue. But I mean, he's a master Jedi, so he does have the gravitas in at least.
Okay.
And I also like very much the soundtrack of Michael Avels, who usually does soundtracks for Jordan Peele, and he really, really captures well the essence of a classical Star Wars soundtrack, but also he gives it a little bit of his touch, a little bit of like suspense, sinister touch, which I really like. And he does also like, for example, when he follows very closely the action with his soundtrack. So when they are fighting, the soundtrack is right there with the fight. And yeah, so enjoyable overall. I don't think it's a bad series. I think it's a good series.
Okay, right, that's an interesting start. Richard,
Yeah.
what's your view on it?
So I believe that there will be many people actually who have the same reaction as Alfonso, and I believe that actually that actually I think that I could agree with a lot of things that you said, Alfonso, because if I look at this TV show and it's not linked to Star Wars, and I just watch the TV show and I try to actually to have a point of view as a casual viewer, I will understand that it has qualities because it's true that actually the cast is actually pretty good. Especially actually there is just mentioned actually, but for me actually so far the one actually with the best actor of the show is a guy who played in The Good Place. He's called try to get his name right.
Manny Jacinto.
Manny Jacinto, yeah, exactly. Sorry for pronunciation. Yeah. I couldn't recognize him at first when I watched the show. I said he's amazing. I said, but I know this guy, So yeah, I went to Wikipedia. Yeah. So yeah, the cast is doing a good job overall. Actually, it's doing actually a very good job. It looks beautiful to look at, etc. Now the problem, if you are a Star Wars fan, is that, and it's not. I'm not saying that's a good thing, by the way. I'm just saying that it's what naturally happened. That if you are a Star Wars fan, you will start to do some nitpicking. You will try actually to understand how this show will be part of the overall mythology. Even if you're right, and that's the good thing, is that again, that it's the first show that is trying to be as far away as possible from the Skywalker saga, etc., because of when it is taking place. But still, because we've been given for decades, we've been given books and legends for that explain everything for each century and each year of the Star Wars chronology, you will actually naturally try actually to understand what's going on behind the scenes, etc. Is this guy the guy I think it is? Is actually this linked to this, etc. And which is a bad thing, and I realize that. But you can't stop it. And that's actually why I truly believe actually that Lucasfilm's job is becoming actually more and more difficult, almost impossible to please the big fans. You see, I'm trying to be actually to be not just to do a rant and say I hate this thing, etc. I try to put myself in the shoes actually of a creator in Star Wars. I think it's so difficult nowadays because I watched this thing and I thought that's boring. I really think it's boring. But because the story itself, I was thinking, where they're going nowhere. Nowhere in the universe I know of is going nowhere. And even if they go somewhere, I have some theories, I think, and so what? It doesn't matter. Yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to blame myself here. And maybe actually I should blame the whole Star Wars fan base because we don't know what we want, literally, when you think about it.
Maybe we cannot have a Death Star or whatever it's called, like the Empire.
In every show, in every movie, right? Yeah, totally. But that's the problem, is that actually, but we don't want. Well, in a way, we do want the Easter eggs. We do want the connection to all the things that we enjoyed in the original, the prequel trilogy. We don't want to say it, but we do want these things in a way. And at the same time, we do keep saying, and I say we, I insist, not you, we, I include myself. We also say that we want creators, directors who have freedom, who create new stuff and have liberty and create new things within the Star Wars mythology. But that's not true. But deep down, I don't think it's true. I don't think, and I think that the Acolytes will have difficulties actually to find an audience. We're not sure that it's going to be a great result at the Disney Plus box office in the end. Because of that, because I believe actually that, as you were saying, that the director actually pitched something a bit new to Lucasfilm, and she's trying something new. She's trying, as I said, some kind of murder mystery within the Jedi Order. Again, it's only 2 episodes in, so maybe it will be another story, but it looks like it's what it's going to be. And I'm pretty sure that there will be some backlash because it's too different from what we've known over the last 30 years or 40
But
years.
at the same time, I think in some parts of it, like when they use the Force, it feels very classical.
Yes and
Uh,
no. Yes and no. Because well, this is not a spoiler because I think it's in the old trailers. When they fight, 99% of the time, they don't use lightsabers. They fight like in the Matrix. No pun intended because of Carrie Ann Moss, but they fight actually in the Matrix. Actually, it's like Kung Fu style. They call it Kung Fu Force or whatever. That's the new words in the Star Wars fan base. And it looks great, obviously, because the Matrix Saga was great, by the way, so they're not inventing anything. And there is some kind of, in the story, you will see when you watch it, they explain why, I mean, it's like a plot device or whatever. It's like they explain why they don't use lightsaber or whatever. And it's nice. I mean, again, it's different. I can't blame her. It's different. It's something that we never seen, and it's not the worst scenes of the 2 episodes. Actually, these scenes of fightings are actually very decent. But yeah, it's just the overall story. I mean, and by the way, I have more. My main problem actually is the ending of both episodes. I will not say what they are, but how they were edited. Maybe Afonso, you might agree on that part at least. The ending of both episodes look actually that they cut a scene in the middle every time. You know what I mean? It's like actually that it looks actually that it's a movie of 8 hours, but she sold a 8-hour movie, and it's someone else, not the director, who said, "Okay, we're gonna stop here and here and here, episode 1, episode 2."
well, they don't use they don't use, let's say, a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
They
absolutely
use
not.
they in a traditional sense, they use like a character cliffhanger, let's say.
Yeah.
They introduce a new thing in the sense like a new character, a new something, a new setting, a new something, and then it's like, but you will see more about this in the next episode.
Yeah, in a way, it feels like the 1960s movie. You know? Yeah, because especially the second episode, it ends and it says directed by Leslie Thingy. I said, that's it. And I think that's so weird. It's just like, I don't know, put it in the wrong, different set. You say someone opens the door and says goodbye, goodbye, end of story.
Well, not so.
And that's it.
In the first,
It's so anticlimactic. Okay.
I will give you that in the second episode. I thought the first episode was good, the good ending, but the second episode compared also to the first episode, because the first episode kind of is more like epic, also in the kind of character, in the kind of setting. The second episode is like, okay, I'm going home.
Exactly. Go back. Okay, see you.
Okay, coming. I'm getting me in my home. Okay, bye. Dilated bye.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so weird. Anyway, but again, it's only 2 episodes in. Who knows? And I didn't like the 3 first episodes of Andor, and in the end, I really enjoyed that show. So who knows?
Okay. Well, it's worth giving. See, I'm intrigued. I guess. I guess the trouble with Star Wars because it started so big, it ends so big. Anything else following in the TV series, kind of, or even other movies, are going to always be in its shadow. So I don't know. With an audience that doesn't quite know what it wants after 45 years, not surprisingly, yeah, I can understand it's quite tricky times for this franchise.
I have monitored the fan reactions because I find it interesting. I think that Richard is absolutely right when he says that there's always going to be backlash. I mean, George himself talks about backlash to C-3PO and R2-D2 back in the 70s, Andor, which is, in my opinion, a near perfect Star Wars show, still gets a lot of, hatred or dislike or whatever. So I think that's proof. First thing I want to say, though, I like seeing Jonas Sotomo, who plays Chewbacca, seeing him in another Wookiee outfit. I think it's quite good for them to rehire these people, especially because Star Wars can be a career killer, for lack of a better term. One thing I find interesting is the lack of lightsabers. I thought they would at least do force fighting or something, but that doesn't seem to be a thing either, even though I think that would be way cooler than, like, I know that's kind of what they're doing, but it's not to the same degree. Especially with like force fighting and things, you just have actors moving and doing yoga, which is I think a lot cheaper than having them wired up being, doing things. The other thing I find interesting is Star Wars has always been very multicultural. It takes things from every culture around the world and puts it in this beautiful thing. I mean, if you look at the original, you have ponchos from Mexico, you have Japanese subculture, you have Western, you have these British bad guys, you have Nazi uniforms. And now this seems very like East Asian, which is fine, but it's like not like what it used to be with all these different cultures. Like that's what I thought was so cool about Star Wars was the multiculturalism of it. I think that I like the fact that the creators are Old Republic fans. At least they seem that way. I mean, the Jedi logo in this is halfway between the original Old Republic logo and the Jedi logo from, the Clone Wars era. So, speaking of Clone Wars, I think it's right when we say Jedi fan, like Star Wars fans don't really know what they want, but and they say they want something new, but then when like something new happens, they don't like it versus when it's like Tales of the Jedi or Clone Wars, they're very happy. My final thing, because we were talking about the cast, and I agree the cast is quite good, for what this is. There's one actor that I have seen in every show, and I just never like him, and I don't know why, and that is Charlie Barnett. I think his characters always have the same like boy next door personality. I've seen him in Tales of the City, Chicago Fire. There was another show he was in, and he's just always annoying me, and I don't know why. So, and I know that he's ripped in this, which is funny because he played a firefighter before, but I guess a Jedi needs to be more ripped than a firefighter. But yeah, it's just worth noting. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but it's worth noting that this is an actor that I am not fond of. So, you know.
By the way, this guy actually, and telling you, but actually, and we have to admit it, and but actually, some fan base of very famous IP can be toxic. This guy actually is getting a lot of bad things said to him online because of one thing. Because of not. It's ridiculous. Trust me. They're making fun of him, saying actually he shouldn't. Some of them say he shouldn't be hired because he's not a real Star Wars fan because of one comment he made during an interview, and he was completely wrong about what he was saying. It's BS.
Yeah. Well,
instead of saying that this is ridiculous, I'm sorry, it's like very nerdy stuff.
Well, I'm sorry
that Anakin Skywalker destroyed the Death Star.
Instead of Luke. It's all right.
Who cares that he said that instead of Luke Skywalker? I'm telling you, it is nerdy stuff and much, and people. That's why he gets some.
I think that Star Wars fans, a particular breed, because they've kind of had raised 40 years of lore, and then I think they're going to be quite protective over it, and it's understandable. And so you get the impression if you've got people coming in, if they say it's a totally new start, it's a new era, we're not even going to refer to any, it's in itself, then fine. That's a healthy place to start regrow this franchise or explore a new direction. But I guess they're very, very sensitive to if they get the impression people coming into it aren't serious as them.
And which is so sad to me because I think the best characters and actors in the series don't really care about Star Wars. I mean, look at Harrison Ford, so it's not like they need to care. I mean, it's nice. Exactly. Like I think it's cool that Mark Hamill cares and does Make-A-Wish and everything.
Exactly.
But I'm very sorry for him that he's
you don't need to be a fan to do a good performance. I mean, that's ridiculous. In Game of Thrones, both Lena Headey and Peter Dinklage never read the books, and they didn't care about the mythology before being hired, and they did a great job. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I'm sorry. Maybe if he plays a different type of character or person. But, he doesn't deserve hate. And I know, like, as a person of color and a gay man, he'll receive more hate than other people because people will go after those things instead of the legitimate reasons, which I have, in my opinion, listed. So,
okay, well, it seems kind of like jury is somewhere. If you're willing to just take this as it is, then could be quite interesting series to stick with. But anyway, we'll see. Right, next, another long-running franchise, which has quite a good hit rate, is surprisingly is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Kind of a bit of a tongue-twisted title there, but I thought this had finished. I mean, coming with Caesar and the story arc, but I'm intrigued. What is this? What's the premise of this? I assume it's follows on from the other films in the series?
Well,
What's
that's complicated, and maybe we can have a discussion to help me out here, because I wasn't very happy, but there was a fourth, let's call it the fourth Planet of the Apes movie since the reboot or the prequel or whatever you want to call it, the movie with James Franco 15 years ago or 20 years ago. But in a way, it seems actually, but I read interviews after watching the movie, that the guy called Wes Ball, right, the director, says actually that in the end, it's not supposed to be connected to the original movies of the 1960s, 1970s. For him, it's a complete reboot. The James Franco movie of 2011, perhaps, and all the ones after apparently are complete reboots not connected to the original franchise of the 1960s. Fair enough. I didn't get it. I thought actually that maybe they changed their minds, Disney, afterwards. They say, okay, let's try to not to go the Star Wars way again, and let's not actually try to do prequels that we know how we're gonna end, so we have some more freedom. But yeah, if we believe what he's saying, then this fourth movie does make sense, because in a way they can do whatever they want, explaining how actually from one virus outbreak or whatever, the ape civilization will take over. But yeah, it's kind of fun. About this movie, I think that, yeah, after the end of the previous one, you would understand that, because the previous one, the character by Woody Harrelson is clearly saying that human species is actually starting to literally degenerate, actually to lose some IQ or lose intelligence, and even lose the way of the ability of speaking. And on the other end, you have apes actually getting smarter and smarter. So it's not surprising. And again, I respect what Wes Ball is doing. I mean, there is a line at the beginning of the movie saying actually just few generations later or something like that. So it doesn't put him in it gives himself some freedom. You don't know when it's set, this movie. It's just very long in the future, and you just wonder actually what the next movie would be, because for now you just have kind of almost the same premises in the 1968 movie. You have already 90% of the humanity who is enslaved or disappeared, and you have apes who are almost as smart as human beings nowadays, or at least like on their way to become as smart as human beings. There's just a small tribe. That movie actually is funny. I'm sorry, we're gonna go full spoiler here, but that movie is funny because it could be actually a crossover with Fallout TV show, because the small portion of humanity that survived lives in bunkers, and they live in bunkers, and they try actually to find a way to fight back, I guess. Yeah, and that's actually I guess the future of this franchise. Yeah. So that's yeah. But I'm trying to explain a bit, but yeah, I'm not sure that I explained it very well. But yeah, that's where we are now in this franchise.
What is it? Is it? Did you like the film? I mean, 'cause it's quite very plot heavy, obviously, but is it I suppose an action? I mean,
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah,
because the films have had different genres.
think
One's been an escape movie, then kind of almost a tribal political kind of like.
it's a bit too long. First of all, that's why I don't think actually it's that amazing. I think it's the CGI. I've never seen anything like it, to be fair, in regards to CGI of the apes and how they actually behave, etc. It's another level. But the movie itself, did I like it? I found the story with a lot of potential, so I've always invested in it. Now, that being said, it was just very forgettable because, yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it was just okay. It's just an okay movie in my opinion, but I don't know. It's, yeah, I can't say more. James, I will let James talk.
I think that's the thing, is it's such an impressive technical feat, this film. Like, you think So Rise of the Planet of the Apes is 2011. Like you say, this is 13 years later, and all the technological advances they've got. It's absolutely technically stunning, and it's okay, isn't it? I don't. This is the weird thing about the film is it would be fun in a way to sort of rip it apart and go, this is terrible. It's fine, but is that enough for a film that costs like 160 million and is 2.5 hours long? It isn't bad. It sort of does. But the other thing that I've found thinking about it in hindsight is so the original five, like I think you just touched on this, Jason, but the original five, the first one is kind of seen as a very iconic movie, but all those original sequels have got very different tones to them. So they all, you were talking about Star Wars and what do people want. With Planet of the Apes, they managed to have like one of them's quite funny, one of them's quite a dystopian, sort of almost like a horror film. They've all got their own identities in those original five. Then Tim Burton did his reboot, the one that on the press tour he said they asked him if he was going to do a sequel to, and he said he'd rather jump out a window. That was on the press tour. That's how well that film went. So we kind of forget that one, the Mark Wahlberg one. You then got Rise, and I remember watching the trailer and just sort of laughing with my friend, going, "That looks terrible. That looks awful. Let's go and hate watch that." Watching it and going, "Oh my god, that's a really good movie." And I was not expecting it because I wasn't really a Planet of the Apes fan. I sort of knew what the first one was. I knew the twist at the end, but I hadn't watched any of them at that point. And as reboots go as well, I think that's really good. And apparently that one started life as a different script. And then they kind of, because it was about the whole idea of someone keeping an ape and then they started to go, hang on, this could be a way to reboot this. Someone at Fox has sort of tapped into that. So that's a really good standalone. You then get Dawn, which moves things on. And I think you wouldn't be so invested in it if it wasn't for the work they do in Rise as a reboot. But it's a completely different movie and it's a step up and it feels like even better. And then you get War, which is a really good film in terms of visual storytelling. There's hardly any dialogue really in that film apart from a little bit from Woody Harrelson. And it's a really sort of, again, a dark dystopian film. And they've all got their own identity and it's a really, really good trilogy. And then you just get this. And this one doesn't have its own identity. This one feels like it feels quite like Dawn with a bit of War, but not quite as good as that. And it starts with the end of War, which we won't sort of ruin, but everyone knows that is a definitive ending. And it sort of says that's in the past. Here's a new story. But do people really care at this point? It doesn't feel like it does enough work to make you care. There's a human character who comes in about an hour in, and it feels. I mean, we'll get on to Furiosa in a moment, but like, I kind of felt like it probably should have started at that point. If this was maybe a 2-hour movie, and they kind of started it a little bit later with the human character, I might have got more into it, or if they'd done some setup work with the. But really, I mean, there's just like another ape we're following. We don't get any of the setup work that we do in Rise, where we've got Caesar as a chimp, and we're kind of invested in this kind of weird, almost like parent-child relationship that James Franco has with an ape that he salvaged from a medical center. So I mean, again, it killed 2.5 hours, and it's not a bad movie, but I think what Richard said about it being forgettable, that is maybe its biggest problem.
Yes.
It's done okay in terms of 2024 box office. So it cost 160 million. It's done 340 million. Like I said in the chat recently, there was a time when Sony wrote off the entire second Spider-Man universe because Amazing Spider-Man 2 only did 750 million. The biggest film of the year hasn't even done 750 million in 2024. So how times change. So the fact that this is a bankable IP, they'll probably do another film on it. But that's why this film exists, is because the other ones worked, but nobody kind of had the guts to say, well, that had a definitive ending, so let's leave it. I mean, I think if this had if War was the last one and nobody did a Planet of the Apes film for 15, 20 years and then they resurrected it, people might have gone, oh yeah, these were good. Let's do a new take on it, because times that would have moved on and maybe we've got something new to say and a new approach. But it just feels like a little bit of a, yeah, let's do a bit of what we did in the second film and the third film, because that's what this franchise is now. And so when you sort of look across the 10 movies or so they've done, it's probably the least good one apart from the Tim Burton Mark Wahlberg one.
Yeah.
But if there's nothing else on, watch it because it's all right.
Wow, put that on the poster. Thank you. All right. Well, from that long-running IP, to another one, and that is the Mad Max universe, ongoing from the original, I think, 1979 film, actually, with Mel Gibson. Well, it's had 3 films initially, and then it had a George Miller with Fury Road, and kind of like taking up the baton once again, and a phenomenal movie. And that was a few years ago. So I think this was, carrying on from that. Well, the same character, but more of a kind of prequel to that. Strangely, oddly enough, and that was the Furiosa character, who's her younger years and how she started, and that's played by Anna Taylor-Joy. And basically her upbringing in the wasteland. A lot to live up to, considering Fury Road was cinematically quite a feast for the eyes.
Perfect.
So a lot was expectation of this, unfairly maybe, or fairly. Richard, you saw this. What did you think?
Compared to the other Mad Max movies, it's definitely not the best one. That's for sure. I rewatched a couple of the old ones recently, and honestly, with the exception of the third one, which is a very big joke. Honestly, it's not even a movie. I think Furiosa is the worst of the franchise. And it's not that, I'm not saying that because of how it looks like and the cinematography, etc. I'm just talking as a movie itself. There's so many wrong things about this movie, but actually that's kind of are more important actually than the good stuff. So I'm trying to explain myself. Fury Road, as you said, for me was a masterpiece almost 10 years ago. And in the end, the story wasn't that great. In the end, it was just a car chase for almost 2 hours. But it was just technically amazing. You are always invested. That's actually pretty amazing when you think about it. Doing a car chase for almost 2 hours and being invested in the characters, that's pretty cool, actually. I was invested in a character, well, not really a character of Max, which is kind of has become a supporting character in his own franchise. But the character of Charlize Theron, actually, I was definitely, I was rooting for her. I was actually wanted her to survive at the end, etc. So that's very impressive to do that with only cars. And then I don't know what George Miller is thinking. I think he wanted actually to create spin-off movies, actually to create a world around, especially Fury Road, but also the Mad Max franchise, to spin off to actually to do some world building. But in a way, I mentioned that when we discussed that when I left the movie theater, in a way, this movie is interesting because of the world building. And that movie should have been called Mad Max Wasteland, because there is so much actually that George Miller wants to say about his new world, wants to show us about this world that he's creating, this post-apocalyptic world. And that's actually the most interesting part, in my opinion, of Furiosa, which is a problem because it's called Furiosa. So if I'm not interested in the character called Furiosa, then what am I watching? I got nothing against Anna Taylor-Joy because I think she's pretty amazing young actress. I was a big fan of the Queen Gambit. Been a big fan of The Menu. I can think about other movies that have been Split, etc. All the movies before I actually enjoyed. It's just actually that her character was going nowhere here because, first of all, and that's the problem of all prequels, that we exactly know what's going to happen to her. So how can you be invested in her? And by the way, how the movie is made, it's not centered on her for half of the movie. The movie is 2 hours and 30 minutes. For an hour and a half, it's not centered on her. It's not focused on her character. So yeah, every time actually it was part of her character development, I was switching off. I said, I don't care. The last 30 minutes, it's supposed to be a big face-off with the big bad guy played by Chris Hemsworth. I couldn't care less. I'm not even joking when I said that I was thinking of leaving the movie theater because I was thinking, I don't care who's going to win this battle. Actually, I know who's going to win this battle. So, and actually, it's a good thing actually I stayed because it's not a spoiler, but the ending of that movie is one of the stupidest thing I ever seen because the last scene of the movie is a montage of Fury Road. And it's not like actually that sometimes in movies that have sequels, you have a movie ending and you have a trailer of 2-3 minutes of the next one. It's not a trailer. It's not a trailer because it's a montage that shows everything from the beginning to the end of Fury Road. So if you haven't watched Fury Road before, you just have to watch the montage and you know everything about it. So thank you, George Miller. So actually, you just shot yourself in the foot. So I don't know. Yeah. So it's so sad because again, if he did a movie, and actually, by the way, I think George Miller knew enough movie that would never happen because Furiosa is a box office failure. The next installment should have been called apparently Wasteland or something focused on the Wasteland. That's a shame because actually I would have enjoyed this movie more than this one. So, yeah.
I did get the same feeling. It was like a very long movie. It did feel like a film that's chasing after a story or trying to find one in any direction he could find. Chris Hemsworth it's almost kind of a comedic performance. You just don't know. It's not intimidating as such. And however, I must say about this film, before those last or that climax is a great chase sequence in just which is not the climax, oddly enough, but is somewhere towards the end. But it's kind of like, wow, this is what I remember. This feels like George Miller. This is what you built this film for. It's great. It's this truck kind of like convoy and or hijack, but did remind me of basically all his other work. Yeah, I would say this probably stands maybe I don't know if it's better or worse than Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome, quite honestly. If you see that, then you're in for a treat. Also, it is a bit odd. I and also maybe I mean, all I really want if I was going to have a secret wish, a Mad Max movie with Mad Max and maybe it's I don't know it's straight if it's a side story honestly, but visually I mean look, George Miller still has it honestly, and he will always will, it seems. But yeah, I it seems a bit I don't know, redundant almost. James, you did see it. How does that rank in the other films compared to this? Is this one of the
Yeah, I mean, I thought I'd be the only one saying that I didn't like it. And to be honest, I sort of come out of this and because everybody was saying they liked it, I thought, oh, I must be wrong. I must be wrong about this. And I probably am, I probably am. But I I I think with the Mad Max, when you look at the original, it's like a B movie, isn't it? It's a very like fast-paced B movie. And they kind of use these barren landscapes because it's a way of getting a really good sort of visuals on no budget, and they do that very effectively in sort of the original and the second one. Obviously, the third one they've got a huge budget and they can get Tina Turner doing the music video. It's not a problem anymore. But even Fury Road is like 2 hours and it doesn't feel like 2 hours. Like Richard says, it's a kind of a car chase, and like I like plot, but I don't like plot for the sake of plot. And it makes me think of I know people love John Wick 4, but my favorite, and somebody else said to me this week that their favorite one's the first one. I love the first one because the first one is you've killed my dog, so I'm going to go after you. That's all you need for a plot, right? And 4 has some of the best action sequences I've ever seen in my life, but they're interspersed with these long, corky scenes where they're trying to set up the spin-off show. And it's like, I don't care about that. I just want to see people getting kicked down flights of stairs. And I did feel with this, like, it just feels a bit too long. And I questioned whether if it was called The Wasteland, because I was aware of that I'd have a different reaction to it. But I thought that the trailer is saying it stars Anya Taylor-Joy in the biggest font you've ever seen, and she doesn't turn up for an hour into this movie because we're watching Young Furiosa. I know, Richard, you said that you preferred the first part. I can't even remember now. Did you say you preferred the first section?
Yeah, definitely the
I-
first part.
And
Definitely the first
I
part.
sort of did, but I think I was so frustrated that I was like, she's not in it. So when is this going to start? So yeah, I mean, when you think to Fury Road, Charlie Theron steals the show in that, and here Furiosa feels like a supporting character in her own movie because it is called Furiosa, and like you say, if they didn't want to go with that, it's even called Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga. And Jason's right. Don't call it a Mad Max saga if Mad Max isn't it. Just like have the balls to just say this is just called
Actually, there
Furiosa.
might be a cameo of Mad Max in that movie. Voilà,
Okay.
for 1 second. That's fucking stupid, but sorry, man. Sorry for my language, but yeah. No, seriously,
But
yeah. For 1 second.
Okay, I think like revenge stories should be shorter. Chris Hemsworth's performance, I really love Chris Hemsworth and I love him as a comic actor, but I feel this is like a hair away from being Jared Leto in The House of Gucci. I feel it's not pitched quite right, and it's weird because there's so many performances where you can have someone who's quite charismatic and funny doing horrific things. You think of Heath Ledger in Dark Knight Returns. He's kind of darkly funny, but he's doing horrific stuff. But for me, yeah, it doesn't feel like enough of a threat. And I appreciate what Alfonso's saying as well, because they've got this weird kind of almost like black comedy element to them, maybe the Mad Max films. They're sort of dystopian, but there's kind of like a little bit of sort of humor in the gangs, the way they dress and stuff. They always seem like quite quirky. Someone pointed out Chris Hemsworth has gone full Bogan in this film, it's sort of in his accent and stuff. Um, I think the green screen is terrible at certain places. The thing about Fury Road is it feels very like they're doing it practically, and I'm sure they're not all the time, but it always feels like you're watching a real car chase. And I mean, the green screen in this isn't as bad as Expendables 4, but I mean, nothing. The screen that I've got at the moment isn't as bad as Expendables 4. The weird thing is, I really liked the showdown. So it's broken into 5 chapters, and the 5th chapter, the shortest one, is the showdown, which it's not a huge spoiler, but you get a kind of a face-off between 2 characters. I thought this is really weird because this scene could have just played out like anywhere. So a film that's sort of so much about the locations, it kind of doesn't really matter where you are for that last thing. To touch on the montage thing, so this is really strange. So in the UK, and I'm sure in English speaking territories, the way that the end credits play is you get sort of directed by George Miller, then you get a little clip of Fury Road, which still doesn't really work, and then it says produced by little clip of Fury Road. Now when they do alternative versions for different territories, they'll sometimes redo those titles, won't they? So they'll put directed by in French, and then they'll put George Miller. And it feels like they've done that separately, and they've gone, oh, we can't be bothered to splice it in. We'll just do a montage at the end and do that. But it still doesn't work for some reason. It feels really cheap, and it's a really odd way to end the movie. And maybe because it's George Miller, nobody was there to sort of go, it doesn't really work. I think you should probably just have that on black. Just don't have any, because you're right, you can't do a post-credit sequence anyway like that. You can't do where you just show something that's all happened. Can you imagine if you stayed to the end of an old MCU film and they just showed you the start of a film you'd already seen in phase 1? You'd be livid.
Business wise, I mean, marketing wise, whatever you want to call it, I really don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I mean, what would be the point? What would be the thought behind? Let's show the whole next movie, what I mean, in the chronology within 3 minutes.
Do you know what might have worked is if they'd have done that as drawings, say if you did it as like drawings or something like that, or if you actually filmed Anya Taylor-Joy doing those the sort of like scenes that were reminiscent of Mad Max Fury Road to sort of go, oh, this is how it ties in, and sort of do it as a bit of a. But you're very aware it looks very different as well, that because it doesn't look as digital, that film, so
Because
it's really
there are some people,
strange.
there are some
It
people
doesn't work.
who's gonna watch these two movies chronologically, you know what I mean? But are we gonna start with
Yeah.
Furiosa and we're gonna watch Fury Road? So at that point, we're gonna stop the movie and say, no, don't watch this, because you're gonna ruin the next 2 hours. You know? It's like you watch Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, and then at the end, George Lucas say, hey, let's do a montage of the original movies at the end. So, that's so
Yeah, absolutely, it wouldn't work. Well, I said if when Casino Royale come out before they even knew that where that was going to go, if they just suddenly started splicing up bits of Doctor No at the end of Casino Royale, you go, what are they playing at? You
It
know, at the
is.
end of Batman Begins, and they just show Michael Keaton and Kim Basinger or something. You'd be like, what? Why? like the whole point of rebooting this is to sort of think it's a different thing. But it is weird because on one hand it doesn't work at all, but it did make me go, I need to go home and watch Fury Road because that was really good.
It is
And
always
I
a bit
think,
of a strange thing having a premise, I mean, a prequel, but yeah, these titles did feel like, well, here's the film that you could have won, but but it's.
but
I don't know, it was always a
Richard's
bit
right
messy.
about this because we've got this now with the last couple of films we mentioned where the prequels, or Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes might be a prequel to the original, and they're saying it's not now, but it is like. I wonder with Mad Max if they were like, right, we want to do something else and we don't know where to take this now, because I never really was there some issue to do with, and apologies if this is not true, but I thought there was an issue to do with money after Fury Road, and somebody said they weren't paid properly, and so Fury Road 2 never happened. But you would
This
have
is why
thought it
there
would have
was a
been an
delay.
obvious thing to do because it was such a hit. But it's like there's a point you don't want to churn out a film maybe the year after. But if you leave it for more than 3 years, it's sort of it's very difficult to kind of recapture that energy, I think. Like, I mean, I know they did it with years ago with Terminator 2 and with Aliens that we always talk about as high benchmarks for sequels, but almost those films nobody was expecting the sequel at the time because it wasn't a thing that you would always get them. And it was almost like coming back to it after years and finding a different approach anyway. I think it really felt with both of those films that they found a different story to tell. But in this case it feels like you said, Jason, they've got a bunch of ideas and they're not really sure which one to follow, and maybe that works when you're doing a series. Because that was very much my feeling about the last Ghostbusters film as well. It's like if you were doing a series, that's okay to sort of go, right, we're going to follow multiple storylines. But if you're watching a film, it doesn't, unless you're doing something like like a sort of Tarantino type film or a very long, drawn out film. It doesn't work in film because you just go, this feels a little bit incoherent, like we're all over the place. It doesn't feel focused enough. And if your film's called Furiosa, surely that's who you should be focused on.
It does seem to be the landscape now of film and TV that we just talked about in this episode about very long running franchises going backwards and forwards, and then they dare not try anything new because it's probably too risky, honestly, financially. So they're kind of like chasing their tail here. I don't know if they'll ever come out of it. Who knows?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with the big budget films. But I think certainly kids' films seem to be doing big business. You know, Garfield isn't a film that I was rushing to see, but it's done big money. We've got Inside Out 2 coming and things like that.
Yeah.
But we need some films for the adults.
Yeah, we need them. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we will. But okay, well, that's probably a little what we've been going on in the last month in mostly Hollywood land. But we turn our attention to recently we had the Cannes Film Festival. A few choice entries there. Richard, what caught your eye from the Cannes Festival?
Okay, so this is the French moment of the podcast, and everybody's got to listen very carefully what I'm going to say. So yeah, in France, there is a huge hit, huge box office hit. It's a very nice movie called Un petit truc en plus. So I think that James just kind of listened very carefully because he's gonna say it in a few minutes.
You said it much quicker than I can't do it that fast.
So yeah, it's good mention actually, because kind of once in a while you have a very nice little French movie that has some success, not only within the borders of France, but maybe even abroad. And I truly believe actually that this one everybody's going to talk about in the next few months around the world, especially if it manages actually to get a streaming release, because I think it's more of a streaming movie, to be honest. So what's about? So in a nutshell, a son and his father are robbing a bank, and they are running away after robbing a bank, and they I don't remember if they can't find the car, or the car has been towed or whatever. So they have to find a way to get out of the city as soon as possible. And the way they found to get out of the city is actually to get on the bus with a group of disabled people going on holidays. And they have actually the only way actually to get on the bus is to pretend that the son is disabled as well. And the father is the guy who's, how do you say in English, the carer? Is that right? The one actually who is going with him. So obviously the movie is, at first, is straight up comedy with a cast of disabled first-time actors. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure actually that none of the disabled people actually in the movie are actually professional actors. I think it's like their first time on screen. And the idea is actually to show their world through their eyes, but also they kind of, several times in the movie, they kind of make fun of themselves, but also make fun, obviously, of how people perceive them. So it works very well. It's obviously very smart because it's obviously there is some kind of social comment in the movie, but it's also very emotional by actually why actually some of them are in this social situation. What I mean is they are kind of excluded from society, and there is this thing, and it's always in a way of comedy, but still there are some layers in the movie. And obviously the two guys who are not part of that world in the first place, and they are catapulted in that world for some strange reasons, they're going to learn things for themselves, about themselves, because of this experience. And yeah, so it's that kind of movie. Can I call it a feel-good movie? Yes, sometimes, but in a way, I think I want to call this just a movie that makes you think. It's how I see it. It's actually a movie that's not going to change you and go that way, but at least it's going to make you think maybe how you yourself perceive and treat other people in the world, people who are different. And if it works, at least on one person, if one person actually change his or her way about these other people, actually, I think this movie will have this mission. It will be a successful mission. And why I went to see it, because it's interesting, but also because it's currently actually the second biggest start at the French box office of all time, surprisingly, for a movie that cost like nothing and had so much difficulties actually to find any producer. The guy Artus, a comedian who actually is a director and also the main actor of the movie, I said that I think he did name them. Some big studios actually said no to him because there were disabled people in this movie, and he found a way after that to fund this project. So good thing for him, and I really hope that everybody's going to talk about it and know about this movie. And they had the honor actually to walk the red carpet at the Festival of Cannes, he and the cast. So that was very nice.
Wow. Thanks.
And it's called Un Petit Truc en Plus.
Exactly, James. Well done.
Well
But
done.
do you know what? Do you know what's really annoying about the fact that I've mastered the pronunciation is in this country it's going to be called A Little Something Extra, which I can say very easily.
Right.
No release date yet, but it's got very good reviews, so I'm sure we'll get it at some point.
I hope so. Any other titles that
Emilia Perez, which is a director, Jacques Audiard, which is it's a Best Actress prize also shared with the other actresses of the film, which are Adriana Paz, Zoe Saldaña, Carla Sofia Gascon, which is a Spanish transgender actress also, and I think she's also the lead of the film, because the film is about a drug lord in Mexico who transitions into a woman, and also about female changing bodies. It's one of the other bossy films of the Cannes Festival, which is Substance with Demi Moore and the daughter of Andy McDowell. I don't remember her name, but she's in everything nowadays.
Yes.
And it's by the French also. It's in English, but it's by French director Coralie Fargeat. And also J.C. Plemons was awarded Best Actor for Kinds of Kindness, in which he plays at least 3 different roles, because it's 3 different short stories filmed by Yorgos Lanthimos, which also has I think the daughter of Andy McDowell there, which I don't remember. and Emma.
Emily Stone.
Emily Stone, renamed Emma Stone for Hollywood. And the Palme d'Or, the big prize, was for Sean Baker with Anora, which is about a stripper that Russian mafia, also drug lord or something like that, his son falls in love with a stripper and call our name Anora, and they go on the run, something like that. It's Sean Baker. He usually is doing this kind of like I don't know, like independent films. He did the Florida Project, for example, and I think he does. I mean, it's both Anora and Emilia Perez, which is, by the way, a musical. Emilia Perez is a musical. Are about this kind of like, a little bit like mafia underworld, but from a different, more playful side, a little bit. And I think also that Greta Gerwig was the president of the jury, may have to do with these kind of choices, but I don't know, it just feels like an interesting array of films that have won prizes at Cannes this year.
Okay, yeah, some interesting titles that did. Okay, well, thank you guys for that great roundup of last month's shows and TV, and we'll see you next time. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this film and TV review.com episode. Catch the latest film and TV reviews, together with regular episode content from the world of film and TV every week. See you soon. Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today.